You can spend hours searching online for homes in Millburn Short Hills, New Jersey, and still have no idea what this market is actually doing. Because the data that matters most is the data you can't see. I've been selling real estate here for over 13 years, and my family has been in this town for 5 generations. And I'll tell you what I see on the ground. Buyers who think they understand the market get humbled fast, especially when they don't realize that a Short Hills address and a Millburn address are not the same conversation. One consistently commands a premium. But even beyond that distinction, here's the problem with every public real estate site. They show you the list price, then the home goes under contract and disappears from your search. By the time it posts as sold, the original asking price is gone. You can't see what buyers actually paid versus what the seller asked. You can't see how fast homes are moving. You're trying to make $1 million decision or a multi-million-dollar decision with only half the picture. This video is going to give you the other half, a real honest breakdown of what 1 million through 6 million actually bought in Millburn Short Hills over the past 12 months. I'm using 12 months because we're already pretty far into the first quarter of 2026, and any comps that I pull for a buyer or any comps that an appraiser looks at when doing a mortgage appraisal will only use the past 12 months. So that's what we're using here, 12 months from March 8th, 2026. Okay, there were 208 sales in Millburn Short Hills that made it onto our MLS. 16 of those, however, sold off market, so they were only put on as comps. 101 of those were on the market up to 15 days with an average of 10 days on market and sold for an average of 9% over the listing price. 44 of the 208 were on the market between 16 and 30 days, with an average of 21 days, and sold for about 1% over the listing price. 47 of those were on the market between 31 and 133 days. The average is 70. And this is a little misleading. I'll get into this later. But if a house has been listed multiple times, we only see the most recent days on market. I have 2 very good examples of this. So those 47 that were on for 31 to 133 days sold for an average of 4% under the listing price. Okay, here are the averages across the town. The average listing price was $2.112 million with an average sale price of $2.181 million, and average days on market were 25. Now, 75 of those 208 homes were in Millburn, 07041. This can be difficult to determine on Zillow or homes.com because very often it will show as only Millburn Township, but they're distinctly different. My father likes to say it's a zip code and a frame of mind. It's more than that, but Millburn is 07041 and Short Hills is 07078. So in 07041, 75 homes were sold in the last 12 months. The average listing price was $1.327 million and the average sale price was $1.4 million with an average of 20 days on market. Now, there are a number of little condo buildings and some side-by-side condos, so I dialed down again. 57 of those 75 were single-family homes. The average list price of those were $1.447 million with an average sale price of $1.537 million and an average days on market of 17. Now, 13 of those 57 homes were under $1 million, just to give you an idea. Okay. 140 of the 208 sales in the last 12 months happened in Short Hills. The average list price there was $2.482 million, and the average sale price was $2.555 million, with an average days on market of 27. Okay, now we'll get into the properties, and I thought I'd give you a little treat with the most expensive home that sold in Short Hills last year. It sold off market, but it was put on as a comp. It is 71 Hillside Ave in Short Hills, listed and sold for $6.4 million. It has 6 bedrooms, 7 full and 4 half baths, over 9,221 square feet. It's on 2.12 acres. It's only 0.4 miles to the Short Hills train station, and it's located in the Old Short Hills / Hartshorn area. So Old Short Hills section, districted to Hartshorn School. The taxes are $104,988 a year. Okay, most expensive. Now we'll go down to where I started. This is what your dollar will get you in the 1 to 1.5 range in Millburn and Short Hills. Our first property is 64 Southern Slope. That's in Millburn in the South Mountain section. It was listed for 1.175 million and it sold for 1.385 million. That's 18% over the list price. It was on the market for 14 days. There are 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, over 1,786 square feet. The lot size is 0.16 acres, and it's a half a mile to downtown Millburn and train. Again, it's in the South Mountain neighborhood of Millburn, and the taxes are $15,059. The second in this range is 31 Woodland Road in Short Hills. This was listed at 1.199 million and sold for 1.437 million, about 20% over the listing price. It was on the market for 18 days. It had 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, over 1,516 square feet on 0.2 of an acre, only 0.4 miles to the Short Hills train station, and it's in the Glenwood section. The taxes are $16,592 per year. Now we're getting closer to the $2 million mark. 26 Claremont Drive in Short Hills, I actually showed this to buyers, was listed for 1.47 million and sold for 1.9 million. This is the highest over list price that will be in our examples today. It was 29% over list price. It was on the market for 8 days. I remember that well. It had 4 bedrooms, 2 full, 2 half baths, over 2,349 square feet on 0.15 of an acre. It's 0.6 miles to the Short Hills train station in the Glenwood section again, with $20,367 in taxes. Next is 67 West Road. Funnily enough, I showed this to the same buyers. Also Short Hills, listed at 1.725 million and sold for 1.9. Now, I want to talk about the differences between these two quickly, but first, that sold 10% over list price. It was on the market for 11 days. There were 4 bedrooms, 4 full, 1 half baths, over 2,800 square feet on just over half an acre. It's 1.1 miles to the Glenwood train station with $24,236 in taxes per year. Okay, so these two homes sold for 1.9, but there's a difference in square footage, in land size, quite distinctly, 0.15 versus 0.51, and distance from train. But the other thing that you can't see if you don't dial down is that 67 West Road backs up basically onto Route 24. So you're going to have a little bit of highway noise. However, when you see the photo of this house, it was a stunning center hall colonial. Very beautiful. More bathrooms than Claremont as well. But that can be a little bit of a deterrent for some people. I thought in the house on half an acre, you really didn't get a ton of street noise, but everyone can be sensitive to that in different ways, let's put. I remember when I was showing this house that buyers asked me what I thought it would trade for. And actually, it was right around 1.9, just based on what the house looked like, the condition, the updates, and what had happened on the street. Now, they brought up a couple of houses that had sold 2 and 3 years ago. And I just have to remind you, those are no longer comps. They have to be adjusted now for the, I was about to say inflation, for the appreciation that's happened in the town. They didn't get either of those two houses, but it was an interesting comparison. Now back to the $2 million sector. 42 Haddonfield Road in Short Hills was listed for 1.765 million and sold for 2.2 million. That's about 25% over list price. It was on the market for 19 days with 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, over almost 3,000 square feet on 0.24 of an acre. Only a half a mile to the Millburn train station because it's in the Knollwood section of Short Hills, which is just behind the middle school, but actually closer to downtown Millburn than many of the other sections of Short Hills. So it's almost equidistant to the Short Hills train station, but Millburn is closer into the city. And it has $28,732 in taxes a year. Okay. Here's another Millburn sale, 72 Myrtle Ave, listed at 2.4 million and sold for 2.43 million. So 1.25% above list price. It was on the market for 13 days, although it was actually an exclusive being marketed before that. And it had 6 bedrooms, 3 full, 1 half baths, over 2,764 square feet. Not a huge lot size, 0.17, and just a little under a mile to the Millburn train station. This is in the Wyoming section with $28,471 in taxes. This is a new build, actually. It was built in 2021. It was very beautiful, but one of the most expensive sales in Millburn. Okay. Now in the 2.5 and above, we're at 293 Lupin Way in Short Hills. This was listed for $2.299 million and sold for $2.6 million, 13% over list price, with 10 days on market. It had 6 bedrooms, 4 full 1/2 baths, 3,469 square feet on 0.42 of an acre, just a half mile to the Short Hills train station in the Glenwood section. This has $30,171 in taxes a year. Now we're going above $3 million. 195 Highland Ave in Short Hills was listed for $3.398 million and sold for $3.175 million. So 6.5% under the listing price. It was on the market for 59 days. It had 6 bedrooms, 4 full 2.5 baths with almost 5,900 square feet on 0.74 of an acre, 1 mile from the Short Hills train station in that old Short Hills section again, districted to Hartshorn School, with $50,787 in taxes. Okay, now we're going above $3 million in the sale price. 40 Lee Terrace in Short Hills, listed for $2.9999 million and sold for $3.5 million, 17% above list price. This is the last point in our progression up where things are trading above. It sold in 9 days. It had 5 bedrooms, 6 full 1/2 baths, 4,400 square feet on just about half an acre, 1.6 miles from the Short Hills train station. This happens very frequently in Short Hills. As you get to larger properties, they are further and further away from the train. That's where all of the land was that could be subdivided. So now you're a drive from the train station. This is in the Hartshorn School District and has $52,607 in taxes. 33 Crescent Place. Now, I just said that, and this is an exception to the rule. Crescent Place is very close to the Short Hills train station. This was listed for $3.995 million and sold for $3.8 million. So just a little under, well, $195,000 under, about 5%. It was on the market for 29 days with 6 bedrooms, 5 full 2.5 baths with 4,500 square feet on 0.89 of an acre. This is only 0.2 miles from the Short Hills train station in the Glenwood section, kind of on the border between Knollwood and Glenwood, with $51,046 in taxes per year. Okay, next is 368 Hartshorn Drive in Short Hills. I also showed this house. This was listed for $3.999 this time and sold for $3.999. It was on the market this time for 120 days. It had 8 bedrooms, 8 full 2.5 baths, 5,678 square feet on 0.67 of an acre. It's 1.2 miles to the Short Hills train station in the Hartshorn section with $63,891 in taxes. This was built in 2024 and it was first listed in 2021 for $4.995 million. Then it was increased to $5.495 million and increased again to $5,888,888. It was on the market many times in between then and now, and for a total of 1,596 days, or 4.37 years. Now, this was a very beautiful new construction home, but it sat on its property in a very awkward manner. So the backyard was not at the same level as going out from the family room. There was a big patio, but you had to actually climb up stairs to get to the backyard. Wasn't super usable for families and pets. It sat way up on kind of on a corner hill, the property line. So you had some property in the front as well, but not usable for any type of recreation. And there were some interesting style choices, let's put it that way. I showed it to relocation clients of mine, and they just couldn't make it work with their dogs / the style. It was a massive house. But this one really shows you that sometimes when dealing with builders, it can be difficult to price correctly for the market. So 4.37 years. Okay. Next, 25 Clive Hills Road in Short Hills. This was listed for 4.088 million and sold for 4 million. So 88,000 less than the listing price. It was on the market for 44 days. It had 7 bedrooms, 5.5 baths, over just under 5,000 square feet on just under half an acre. Now, we're way up into the Deerfield section now, so it's 2.7 miles to the Short Hills train station with $49,350 in taxes. Another one I showed to the relo clients was 89 Stewart Road in Short Hills. It was listed this time for 4.650 and sold for 4.625 million. So 25,000 under the list price this time. It was on the market for 67 days this time. It had 7 bedrooms, 7 full 1/2 baths, over 6,875 square feet on 0.67 of an acre. Again, in a kind of strange configuration, very beautiful section and it's 1.1 miles to the Short Hills train station. This is the old Short Hills section, districted to the Hartshorn School, with $63,301 in taxes. Now, this was built in 2017 and renovated in 2023. I showed this house in 2025. The last time it sold in 2017, it was for $3 million, but it was first listed in July of 24 for $5.25 million and on the market for 127 days that time. Okay, and our last property, 49 Woodcrest Avenue in Short Hills, listed for $5.35 million and sold for $5 million. So $350,000 less than asking, on the market for 87 days with 6 bedrooms, 6 full 2.5 baths, over just under 6,000 square feet on 0.68 of an acre. 1.2 miles to the Short Hills train station, again, up in the Deerfield section, with $67,701 in taxes. I hope this has given you a good snapshot of what is going on in Millburn Short Hills in the market and how you need to watch things. My biggest takeaways here are that most of the homes that trade above the list price are under the $3 million mark. And things above that tend to sit on the market depending or trade off market. Feel free to set up a call to talk more about this market through my Calendly link below.